Thank you for staying. It's another Friday, fellow Ghanaians, and in the patriotic spirit, I'm about to serve you my blunt thoughts. I've titled my piece today, my national reflection this morning, Ghana's morbid annual flooding ritual, why we are still at the mercy of nature. Fellow Ghanaians, it was the 7th of April, 1960, right here in Accra, and in the heat of tensions between the United States on the one hand and the United Socialist Soviet Republic, that is the USSR on the other, when the Osagefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah actually uttered those famous words, underlining Ghana's stance of non-alignment. We face neither east nor west, we face forward. Today, however, we face east with China and west with the United States and Western Europe. Not necessarily bad, considering we are in a global socio-economic village. But we failed, crucially, to face forward on the point of core, tangible, rapid development as a people. A typical example is the subject for my discussion today, our yearly flooding ritual. Here is a snapshot from my daily graphic archives of Accra getting flooded in July 1968. Just stay with me. You would see in this story about how on July the 4th, 1968, there's talk of Accra getting flooded. Many parts of the city were flooded and vehicle owners had to leave their cars and wade through the floods or hire people to push the cars out of the flooded areas. Now, you also look at the same year, December the 13th, and guess what? Same situation. The drains were not cleaned and some were so sandlocked that they overflowed, whenever there was a little rain. And it talks about poor sanitation threatening lives in Accra. Do you see the startling similarity between Ghana then and now? We're in 2022, fellow Ghanaians. Our population has grown fourfold from about 8.3 million in 1968 to some 30.8 million per the 2021 census. Yet our leadership hasn't yet matured to the challenge of solving real-time problems. They know how to play the blame game, but not how to take responsibility, take the bull by the horns, and resolve issues once and for all. 54 years since 1968. And this is not to say Accra and different parts of the country weren't flooding before then. But after all this while, Accra, Cape Coast, Takoradi, all the major cities, many other parts of the country are still flooding. Aren't we ashamed of ourselves? In 2015, and I say this with great pain and embarrassment, an unnamed Canadian citizen bets $10,000, standing to get $23,750 if he won, that the Twitter hashtag Accra Floods, which trended that year, would trend again in 2016. Needless to say, he won. If he were to have bet again last year, that is in 2021, though I hear the betting company terminated that kind of bet, he would have won this year too. That is a serious indictment on all of us, most especially our leaders. When your misfortune is so predictable that others can even bet on its happening, then you know you are in a real mess. Thanks to poor leadership, we became a laughing stock. This is what this Canadian man had to say when asked about his curious bet. He said, "Normally, I do not bet on events like floods because of their unpredictability, but the events in Accra are slightly different. Having done a quick Google search, I discovered these floods and the resulting destruction have been occurring year after year. And the Ghanaian authorities always make big promises in the aftermath of such disasters, but they go straight back to sleep when the rainy season is over, only to come back and make the same promises the following year. I don't have to be a genius to work out what will happen next year. It's pretty obvious, so I thought I'd put some money on hashtag Accra Floods trending again." Sad, terribly sad. But whom can we blame but ourselves and the people we opt for to lead us? Here's what makes it so comical, though. We are fully in the know that every year without fail, the rains will come, yet we wait for disaster to happen year after year. Isn't that madness? I mean, who does that? Who sees disaster coming and goes to embrace it with open arms? Well, we do. In the preamble to our 1992 Constitution, we the people enter a contract with our leaders. Quote, "In exercise of our natural and inalienable right to establish a framework of government which shall secure for ourselves and posterity the blessings of liberty, equality, opportunity, and prosperity, and in a solemn declaration and affirmation of our commitment to freedom, justice, probity, and accountability." 3 days ago, when Takoradi flooded, A poultry farmer with 4,000 birds shared a video of how he had lost about 95%, that is about 3,800 of his active laying hens who were killed by the flooding. His words were, "Never have we experienced this level of rising waters. It was devastating." In like manner, just this past Tuesday, Enyonam Manye, a snail farmer, shared with me right here in this studio how a cabbage farmer in the eastern region last year lost about 10 acres of his produce to a flood that totally wiped out what would have been his harvest. For people like these, can we say they are enjoying what the preamble to our 1992 Constitution, which I just read, preaches? The blessings of equality of opportunity and prosperity, of justice, accountability. Can we say that? In this current economic environment, if you incur such a loss, how do you even bounce back? Especially when those loans are now so expensive, thanks to the Bank of Ghana upping its policy rate. How do they pay their debtors? The Agric Minister is begging banks to give loans to farmers and is upset they aren't. But for a country whose economic backbone, bar services, natural resources, and industry has been agriculture, we could have pumped even a quarter of what we are spending on this hideous national cathedral there and seen amazing results. But no, God forbid that our political leaders would be so innovative as to do any such thing. We'd rather erect a monument to insensitivity and obstinacy than sacrifice anything on the altar of the ordinary person's well-being. Such warped prioritization. It's like not even having enough to buy food to eat, yet deciding to spend a loan that is offered you to do business with on fancy clothes. Do you see just how unintelligent that is? Whenever nature coughs, we catch a cold in Ghana. Yet other countries with leaders who have foresight have been able to successfully battle typhoons, cyclones, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, etc. to an appreciable extent. Japan, knowing it is as earthquake-prone as it is, puts up buildings that can stand even the most violent tremors. Here in Ghana, city authorities allow people to build on waterways and even on major fault lines like we have along the McCarthy Hill stretch, which is susceptible to earthquakes. Do you see the difference in approach? Just last year, parts of the Volta region got overrun by the sea. We spoke a lot about that, even about how the mortal remains of some had to be exhumed in Salakope and reburied elsewhere to maintain the dignity of the dead. We've gone quiet now. When it happens again, we shall all jump on the bandwagon and talk up a storm. This is not just a vicious cycle, it's a circus. I know there are some who would definitely say, but these flooding problems didn't start today, and they aren't even unique to Ghana. I concur. But at the same time, that's precisely why we elect leaders to solve problems. Tell me, what were the circumstances when some parts of Germany last year and parts of China this year got flooded? Extreme conditions that we call force majeure situations, because no matter how well prepared you are, these circumstances are so extreme that you can only try to contain the force of nature as well as you can. But in our case, we are so ill-equipped and ill-prepared that a downpour of 10 minutes can flood certain parts of Accra. That is a complete failure. We elect leaders to lead, and if you cannot lead, then shove off. If you can't stand the heat, you get out of the kitchen. As a people, we must wake up and smell the percolating coffee. It's that simple when it comes to leadership. Leadership is akin to computing in this respect. The garbage you put in is the same garbage you'll get out. Giggle, garbage in, garbage out. The sound ideas, fulfilled promises, and the rapid development we'll get will only be as good as the leaders we choose. And we have only two choices, really. Our leaders are either African or Africant. I repeat, we have only two choices. Our leaders are either African or Africant. They either can or cannot do the work. And if they can't, we should keep giving them the boot until we find those who can. That's the way it is. Just hold for me. Wait. I'll take you through the next few slides just to give you a better understanding of what exactly is happening. So look, in terms of flooding in Ghana, the World Bank estimates that $3.2 billion, 4.45% of our GDP, is the worth of economic assets that are at risk of flooding in the Greater Accra region alone. The value of assets at risk in Greater Accra region, that is $3.2 billion, could quadruple to $12.8 billion by 2050 if the right steps are not adopted. Now stay with me. $547 million, keep that figure in mind. The equivalent of 4.3 billion Ghana cedis could solve 87% of the flooding problem in 2022 and 2023 in Accra. $547 million could solve the flooding problem in 2022 alone with a balance of 1.9 billion Ghana cedis. Don't forget the $547 million or the 4.3 billion Ghana cedis. But let's take a quick look at the performance audit report on the provision of flooding control drains in Ghana. You would realize that while we projected between 2015 and 2019, our target was 110 of these, we only completed 12.2. The next slide will also show you that while we wanted to construct retention ponds, which are integral in terms of preventing flooding, our target was 18. Guess what we completed? Zilch, 0. When you look at all the projections we have made in terms of construction work to mitigate flooding, it's a plan, 2022 to 2024. Look at how much we've budgeted in 2022 alone. Greater Accra region, 780 million. Ashanti region, 337,000. Western region, 268,000. It goes on and on. And look at the projections in terms of kilometers of these drains we want to construct. In the Greater Accra region alone, 21.7. All of them are here. There's no data for Western, North, and the Eastern regions, partly because they are not so flood prone. But let's look. Now that we've looked at the cost of what it would take to actually get us over the bridge, look at the cost of building the National Cathedral. The project cost $350 million per government. Rebuilding the Judicial Trading Institute per Okudzeto Ablakwa's permutations, it could cost us $50 million. Relocating the companies and entities that were there, compensation and all of that, $100 million, again, Ablakwa. The seed money, we all know, $25 million, as provided by the Finance Ministry, and then Sir David Ajay, the consultant architect, pocketing $22 million. That's according to Bright Simmons. Put this together, you get a whole sum of $547 million. The same amount we need Ghana for to solve 87% of the flooding problem in Accra, or solve it completely in 2022. That is our situation. So when you look at the differences, you would realize that for a total of 205.04 kilometers of drains, we would need that sum to get it, 5 billion. And like I mentioned, we would just need the same $547 million. Priorities. I would like, as I cap this all off, to undertake a very simple exercise with you. I shall take a page extract from Professor Chinua Achebe's masterpiece, The Trouble with Nigeria, published 39 years ago in 1983. Now, wherever you see or hear Nigeria, I want you to replace it with Ghana. And I want you to tell me whether what he described as far back as 1983 is not exactly what we are witnessing now in Ghana in 2022. Are you ready? Let's do this. Where the problem lies, as Professor Chinua Achebe of blessed memory writes, he says, the trouble with Nigeria is simply and squarely a failure of leadership. There is nothing basically wrong with the Nigerian character, or the Ghanaian character, if you like. There is nothing wrong with the Nigerian land or climate or water or air or anything else. The Nigerian problem is the unwillingness or inability of its leaders to rise to the responsibility, to the challenge of personal example, which are the hallmarks of true leadership. I am saying that Nigeria can change today if she discovers leaders who have the will, the ability, and the vision. Such people are rare in any time or place, but it is the duty of enlightened citizens to lead the way in their discovery and to create an atmosphere conducive to their emergence. If this conscious effort is not made, good leaders, like good money, will be driven out by bad. The countless billions that a generous providence poured into our national coffers in the last 10 years would have been enough to launch this nation into the rank of developed nations and transformed the lives of our poor and needy. But what have we done with it? Stolen, salted away by people in power and their accomplices, squandered in uncontrollable importation of all kinds of useless consumer merchandise from every corner of the globe, embezzled through inflated contracts to an increasing army of party loyalists who have neither the desire nor the competence to execute their contracts, consumed in the escalating salaries of a grossly overstaffed and unproductive public service, and so on ad infinitum. Whenever two Nigerians meet, focus, stay with me here. Their conversation, whenever two Ghanaians meet, their conversation will sooner or later slide into a litany of our national deficiencies. The trouble with Nigeria or Ghana has become the subject of our small talk in much the same way as the weather is for the English. But there is a great danger in consigning a life and death issue to the daily routine of small talk. No one can do much about the weather. We must accept it and live with or under it. But national bad habits are a different matter. We resign ourselves to them at our peril. This, brothers and sisters, is why I do what I do. I don't want to resign myself to fate when a great destiny awaits us all. We do so, as Chinua Achebe makes clear, at our own peril. So the next time it rains and your community gets flooded, you know exactly whom to blame. The leaders who only lead by name, not by action. They are the problem. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. I am passionate about Ghana and Africa as a whole. I firmly believe we can change the script of our seemingly woe-begone continent. To do that, though, we need to change the way we think and act and say no to leaders who fail to deliver. These are the means we can employ if we mean to reap the benefits of the manifold resources we've been blessed with as a country and as a continent. These Ghana 4 are my blunt thoughts for you on a Friday morning, served hot, raw, unedited, and undiluted. God bless Ghana.